What is a fallacy? Can you tell me what a fallacy is?
These standards.
These standards, they're not my standards. This is what would be debated in any epistemology class when you make assertions.
What the fuck are you talking about?
What the fuck am I talking about?
Away. So
that's what justification is about.
Let's just say we're at an impasse. You don't believe that my arguments are sufficient to justify existence. Fine, I'm okay with that. I don't want to beat that for so long that everyone is fucking annoyed, which they probably already are. It's fine. And you believe that an external world exists. So moving on to that, let's move into your worldview and why you believe that you have an appropriate account of those things that my grounding fails.
Right. So if God exists, then we have a world where there is a basis for metaphysical principles, epistemic principles, laws of logic, critical thinking, moral absolutes, ethical claims. Because man is made in the image of God, the world operates on a regular fashion in that it has divine providence, which assures the regularity of nature, which is the basis of all science and empirical sense data. I have a reasoning faculty, which I have by virtue of being made in the image of God. And so I'm a little g God who can reason about the world and make decisions and do things, create things, right? I'm a little creator because God is a creator. So for me, the existence of God and his self-disclosure about who he is and divine revelation is itself the basis for how things like the preconditions or categories for the possibility of knowledge are the case. So because God is omniscient, because he has intentionality as being a person and not an impersonal force, and because the world is external to him and it's not identical to him, I can have the ability to make these kinds of distinctions and set boundaries. I can make, I can do things in the world because of that being made in the divine image. And also the way that I go about predicating, sentences, structure, language structure, grammar, universals, numbers, those things exist outside of the mere human empirical individual sense data examples because they are grounded in a divine mind. This is called divine conceptualism, which itself is omniscient, omnipresent, eternal, etc.
Bishop Berkeley, right?
No, he's an idealist and an empiricist idealist. I'm not arguing that at all. I'm arguing the transcendental argument.
Okay. I thought he was the guy that said, like, God is the observer, solves that problem or whatever, but maybe I'm wrong.
He's an empirical idealist. He thinks that God is the great mind and that the rest of us are just other minds observing other ideas. So he believes... I thought
that was the argument.
No. I'm not saying that all reality is ideas. Right.
Okay.
So no, I'm not an empirical idealist like Berkeley. I'm arguing for Christian theism, that there's a creator and there's the created. So the reality fundamentally is two different things, created and uncreated.
Okay, so things exist outside of the mind. You're not like a Berkeley. Right? Like we agree that
there's an external world. There are substances, material substances, of course.
Okay. So, why is it? You're saying God is necessary. Where are you making that? I heard a lot of
God. I would say God is necessary.
God is necessary for these things.
God is necessary in the sense that he's the necessary justification for the transcendental categories that make knowledge possible. Only that type of a being could ground things like universals.
So, and I'm not trying to be an asshole when I say this, right? I'm genuinely trying to get your position here. How is this not like a God of the gaps argument? How is this not just, well, I believe God exists because only God could fix all of these problems that I see in the philosophy. Therefore, one and done, we're good.
Because it's a much stronger claim than God of the gaps. It's actually saying that any possible predication assumes transcendental categories, and transcendental categories assume God. So it's much stronger. It's not just saying that wherever I see a gap, I'm going to stick God in. It's actually saying that you couldn't make a sentence in a coherent, justifiable way without God's existence.
How? So where are you getting that? Where are you getting that from? That in order
I'm saying that is the argument.
Any transcendental? No. Yeah, I'm saying like where. Well, sure. Like, we can all make arguments that are true or false. So I'm saying, when you say that God is necessary for any transcendental category, where are you getting that from?
Because there is no other being that could justify the transcendental categories by definition, by what they are. So
how does God justify those transcendental categories?
Because he's the only being that could ground them by virtue of who and what he is. I listed earlier, because he's omniscient, because of the omnis, because he's omnipresent, because he has personhood and intentionality. That gives us a basis for things like telos in the world, and also things like causation. So without God's existence, you couldn't have a justification for universal teleology, nor could you have a justification for causation.
But I still haven't answered my question. How? You've just said because
well, one
God
how is because
outside of the rules,
right, because of the impossibility of the contrary, which is the internal critique of the other worldviews or your worldview, and the other argument, the other half of it is.
Well, you said earlier You said earlier that that's not an argument. You can't justify
the other
something
part
by
of
the negation.
The other, correct. And that's why, if I only had an internal critique, I would agree with you that my position wouldn't achieve justification. That's why you also have to give the positive case for why the Trinitarian deity is the one that does justify and ground them, right? Within that paradigm. Within the Christian paradigm, it makes sense why there would be rationality, logic.
Can you make that argument? Because as of right now, we're kind of on equal footing.
The argument, right, because in the Christian paradigm, right, where God exists, it's a Trinity, he creates man in his image. I'm saying that the worldview of Christianity makes a coherent sense of why there would be things like universals, because, in this case, God is omniscient and there are divine ideas, and the universals are grounded in the divine mind. If you don't have a divine mind, there's no basis for universals, and thus there's no basis for predication.
Yeah, I'm not actually hearing. You're just saying the Christian doctrine says so.
No, it's a paradigm argument, and that's the argument, is that it's a comparison of one paradigm versus the other. If my paradigm gives an account for it and yours doesn't, then this paradigm is correct.
Well, I'm asking for the account. Like, you're just restating that
the account
that
is the Christian paradigm compared to your paradigm. That's the account.
But we can't be compared to my paradigm, because you
of
said
course
that
it
doesn't
can.
work.
The argument is comparison of paradigm.
Like the same reason that you said that mine is not provable.
The argument, no, it's not. You're missing the point. So you're assuming that the argument.
I'm asking for it.
The argumentation at a paradigm level is not the same thing as the argumentation on a mundane first order level. So this is a meta level argument. So it's an argument about the possibility of arguments. So if my position can give an account for, within its paradigm, how it's possible to have laws of logic, universals, metaphysical categories, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all the things I've been listing, and your position doesn't give an account for it, then my position is correct.
So you still haven't given an accounting. You said that there is one. What is the argument?
The argument is that I need universals, I need these categories. God is the only possible being, and Christian revelation has given that disclosure as to who God is. Divine conceptualism grounds the universal categories. How's that?
But again, it gets us back to like the God of the gaps.
It's not God of the gaps.
I need these things.
It's a God of all.
The
argument is all predication, not God of the gaps. That's what you're missing. So God of the gaps is this idea that whenever there's a problem, I can just kind of stick God in there. This is a way stronger claim that all predication requires a certain type of world and certain types of transcendental categories. And I'm saying that to have the transcendental categories requires some kind of metaphysical justification and grounding itself. The only type of being who could possibly ground those in a coherent way is our God. That's the argument.
My argument, and I want you to tell me why what I'm saying is false, so that I can better understand your argument, right? Which is, existence exists because it's impossible to argue against it, right? That a being, making argumentation exists in some capacity. To argue against their own existence would negate. It would be false. Like, it would just be false. It would be like a performative contradiction at minimum. And then your argument is, when I'm asking you, like, how do you justify that God solves this problem? is that it's impossible to argue against it.
No.
Because you need these other categories.
No,
like,
I said...
sounds like we're making the exact
I
same
said
argument,
if I
but you're
only...
positing
No. I said, again, if I only did an internal critique, I would agree with you. That doesn't necessarily mean that my position is correct. But if I also offer a counter worldview to you, which does ground and give an account for universal categories, etc., all those things that I listed, then that's the positive side, and that's where it gets to justification.
But I can do the same thing, right? Which is what I put forward. Existence exists, identity.
No, you didn't. You didn't give a justification. You didn't give any kind of justification. Right? You just asserted.
So we got bogged down in existence exists quite a bit. Existence
I never heard a justification argument at all.
So so existence exists would be like axiom 1. Axiom 2 would be the law of identity.
Yeah, but you haven't you didn't prove your axioms.
Hold on. Well, you haven't proven yours. You're just saying God exists.
Yeah, but I'm not a classical foundationalist. You're trying to hold me to your standards. I don't have that same system.
Must God adhere to logic, or can God be illogical?
God is the basis for logic, is my argument.
So can God contradict?
No.
Okay, so if God can't contradict, then we agree, regardless of whatever.
That doesn't mean the account is the same. So again, you keep confusing agreement with account of the agreement. I have a different.
I'm using agreement so that we can move forward in the argument.
But it doesn't work because you're missing. But the reason that doesn't work to move forward is that you're not understanding it's two rival paradigms trying to give an account for the same types of things. And my argument is that my paradigm can give an account and your paradigm cannot. And not only can your paradigm cannot make knowledge possible. It's even stronger than God of the Gaps. I'm telling you that any epistemology class will hold you to the same standards. The laws of critical thinking, the laws of thought. Those are not my standards.
You're just saying words.